keep it.
Yeah. Well, when I started in the business, when I started our restoration company, I think that part of what allowed me to be successful for the amount of time that I was in the business, our first year, like we just had a blow up year. It was absolutely fantastic.
My internet campaigns and all my digital platforms are giving me 25% or 30% of my revenue. I've got 2 people on the road making 40 calls a week, and that generates revenues. And I got whatever, so and so that generates revenue.
Owning any type of restoration business is demanding of your time, your energy, and resources. And that's why we're here. This is Restoration Domination. If you're a contractor in water mitigation, mold remediation, biohazard cleanup, roofers, or public adjusters, you'll learn how to dominate using some of the techniques and strategies that our guests will share. We'll interview top industry insiders, movers and shakers, hustlers and hackers, and anyone dominating their industry. This is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, and dominate. And here's your host, Rico Garcia.
All right, guys.
Awesome,
so today I am really excited because if you're in the restoration industry, as a matter of fact, even if you're not in the restoration industry, regardless of what kind of entrepreneur or business owner you are, I think that you're going to pull out a tremendous amount of value from the show. I am joined with a very special guest, and the guy's been selling businesses for the past 12 years, and more specifically than just businesses, restoration businesses. Gokul, thank you so much for jumping on the show. Are you ready to help us dominate today?
Yeah, man. Let's rock and roll. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Cool. So I already did a little intro, but go ahead and just introduce yourself in your own words, who you are, what you do, and how you help business owners like us.
Yeah. So I'm the founder of Restoration Brokers of America. And very simply, we help all our entrepreneurs in the restoration industry prepare their company and to exit their company. That's in a nutshell what we do.
Right. So we were talking a little bit off camera, and obviously sure. you're a very prepared guy. You've been doing this for 12 years. And the reason why I reached out to you, and I thought that you would be such a great addition to the show, is I've always believed in setting up your business for an exit and to do everything, even if you don't plan on selling, but just have it ready for a sale and just make it more attractive, have standard operating procedures, having everything in place, knowing your numbers, things like that are really important. So we were talking a little bit off camera, and what I really want to dive into is what, in your opinion, makes a business not attractive to the marketplace? What is the major killer of a person who has a business, who wants to sell, and then all of a sudden realizes that it's not attractive to the marketplace?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, right? So I can tell you hands down, here's what happens. Every business fails every 10 years. Okay. And what that means is every business has a growth curve. It doesn't matter if you're a restoration guy or you're General Electric or you're Amazon, it doesn't matter. Okay. When you go study companies, every business has a curve. It starts up, then it goes into kind of like an adolescence phase, then it goes into an accelerated, growth phase, and then it plateaus. And what most entrepreneurs do is they wait till the business starts declining. Okay. And then they start calling us. They start thinking about exit because they're painful. It's painful to have a business that's declining. So to me, that would be the number one reason why a business cannot be unsellable, right? 1. 2 is you got to keep good financials, right? You got to prove your numbers so somebody can check you out and make sure that what you are advertising is actually true, right? If your skills are out there on the mitigation and your skills are out there on the truck and in operations, you need to get the skills, outsource it where your financials are perfect. Okay, when you can do it. And then I'll start the third biggest reason is marketing, right? You want to be able to explain to somebody how you generate revenue.
Right.
Okay. So, there's a lot of them. I could talk like a whole hour on this, but if I go to my top 3, those would be it.
Right. So of those 3, which ones do you believe are the biggest missing element? Is it the financials or it's the marketing?
I think people hold on to their companies longer than they should. I think that is the number one mistake that entrepreneurs make.
Really?
Yes, because what happens is, listen, the skill that's going to take your business, like let's say you're running I don't know, let's just pick a number, a $3 million business. Okay, so the skill that takes to run a $3 million business is not what's going to take you to 30 million.
Right. Totally different skill set.
You understand where I'm coming at? So if you look at like Rainmaker's make great startup in restoration, right? The guys that can get out there, know exactly and can sell.
Right.
They can take a startup and I'll see them in 3 years, they're going to like 6 million in revenue or whatever that number is. Right. And then they hit a snag because now they're no longer a Rainmaker. Right. Now they have to transform their role into a team builder.
Right.
And they may not be good at it.
Right.
And then they hold on to their business and they hold on. They're not good at team building. And then the business goes from 6 to 5 to 4. And then they call me because they've been frustrated for 7 years now.
Right.
Correct. So you have these stages of growth of a company. And I think entrepreneurs have to be really acute of what their core skills are and what it takes to take the business to the next level. So I think the number one mistake people make is holding on to it too long, one, or two, they don't recognize their core skills and they don't surround themselves with people that have the skills that they don't.
Right. So would you say, and something that I'm very, very big on is mentorship of some kind, right? And I believe that there's, different areas of your life. If you want to be healthier, you should get someone who can mentor you in better health and better relationships and better business and better financials. Like, so you have, and this doesn't have to be someone that you spend 7 days a week with, right? This could be a 1 week, once a week call, once a month call, once a quarter checkup, something like that. And what I've found is the entrepreneurs that are not, and again, I want to emphasize this, that are not achieving the goals that they want and that they set up for themselves is because they're not finding the mentors or the coaching or the consulting that they need in order to get to that next level. Do you find that to be the case when someone comes to you to sell a business, that the guys that are doing really well had mentorship, the guys that are doing really well spent the money on coaching and consulting?
Man, so can I tell you a personal story?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, by all means. Right, cool. So let me use my own example, right? So I thought I was all that in a bag of chips for 13 years. Okay,
Don't we all?
Yeah. I was like, I'm doing well. Business is going well. We're improving at 5-7% a year. All right, this is awesome. Until I got that guy on my board, and I'll just say his first name. His name is Cliff. And Cliff had a $50 million exit, and I bought him on my board. I kind of chased him and got him on the board. And in the very first meeting, there's like 5 of us sitting there in my boardroom. I'm kind of talking about my next 2-3 years plan. He just leans over in this kind of South Carolina accent and he goes, "Well, I just got something to say." I said, "What's it?" And he looked right at me and he goes, "I don't think you're really as good as you say you are. And if you are that good, I don't know why you're so small." Verbatim.
Right.
And that just shocked me, right? I mean, just took me to my core. I mean, I was getting ready to reach across the table.
Right.
And be like, I started speaking in tongues, man, in that meeting. And, but you know what? He was right. Correct? He was right. And so what he did was take me from my comfort zone and took me to the edge.
And he challenged you.
And just absolutely challenged. And then what I did was, this true story, I took a sticky, I came home, I took a sticky, I wrote that saying and I stuck it in my mirror. So every time in the morning I would read it, and I hated it, just absolutely hated it. My wife's like, "Why are you torturing yourself?" And I said, "I don't know. I got to put it on there. Something's telling me I got to have this in front of me." So long story short, let me tell you, from that day, and I just told you before we started this podcast, I doubled my business the first year. I doubled it again the second year. I'll double it again this year, and I will double it again next year.
Right.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. From one statement. And that what brings you to a point. I think most entrepreneurs, growth happens when you're stretched and you need somebody, you need a mentor, you need a coach, you need to listen to podcasts like you got to keep making yourself get to that edge and be uncomfortable. And to me, that's where the growth happens. Absolutely. I mean, I get calls all the time. "Hey, I've been running the same company for 27 years and we're doing 4.5 million, give or take, for the last 15 years. And this market is saturated, all these excuses, right?
Right.
And then I'll sell it to a new guy. He'll come in and then I'll talk to him 3 years later and he's like, "Oh yeah, we quadrupled my revenue." Same market, same people,
same market, same people. So I just recently did a podcast with Edon Speiser from 911 Restoration. By the way, amazing guy.
Great guy. Yeah.
Great organization. Great story, right? And we went over a couple of his failures, and we went over, obviously the success that he's built, but in a way, he kind of fits into that mold, right? Think about when he got into the business. When he got into the business, there was plenty of restoration companies, plenty of restoration companies. It wasn't a new concept, right? And I'm sure that in his market, there was people that were complaining who were like, this market's already saturated. You know what? I've already hit the ceiling. Yet here comes along someone with a new lens, with a new way of doing things. And really it's not so much the external. It's not what's happening outside of your business walls. It's not that. It's what's happening right in between your ears. Yeah. It's the mindset that you have on how you approach your business. And if you have that positive mindset, that go-getter attitude, right? And we're not talking about, this frivolous mantra of like, I feel really good. I feel really good. I feel really good. Like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about genuinely indoctrinating your subconscious and your conscious mind to say, you know what? I am a problem solver. I'm here to evolve. I'm here to go ahead and take my business to the next level. And that shift in the mindset is everything that it takes for you to go ahead and have a totally different business tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can see it in my own 10 years. I was kind of one of those guys, we grew a little bit every year and I thought it was all great, right? Until someone challenged me. And so I think, like I got this saying in my office and I printed it out for you. Can I read it for you?
Absolutely.
Okay. It's Victor Hugo, right? And he goes, the future has many names. For the weak, it is unattainable. For the fearful, it means the unknown. And for the courageous, it means opportunity.
Yes.
You see where I'm coming at? So you got to be courageous and get yourself out there, learn new things, put yourself in what I call no man's land, where you're not your old self, you're not your new self yet. You're kind of somewhere in between, but there's incredible things that happen there.
Yeah. And you have to see an entrepreneur. This is another thing about the entrepreneur. And I'm sure that probably you've seen this, especially being in the business for as long as you have and dealing with so many people. There are thoroughbred entrepreneurs out there, right? That from the day that they were born entrepreneurs, right? Then there's the entrepreneur that was really more of a worker, more of an employee who got backed up into a corner by life or by a bad boss, or just kind of bumped into an opportunity and says, you know what? I can do this better than my boss. I'm going to go ahead and open up my own truck, right? And now all of a sudden I'm an entrepreneur. Those people, not to say that they can't learn a new skill set, right? But they have a little bit of a harder time because they're still thinking in terms of a technician. They're still thinking in terms of an employee. So they have the employee mindset. And even though they're the boss, they still have that employee mindset. And I think that part of it is relinquishing control of the key elements of their operation that's going to bring them success. Have you noticed that? Businesses reflect how big or small you are as an entrepreneur. It's really, really that simple. And it's a tough pill to swallow. It is just a reflection of who you are. And that's a tough pill to swallow. If you got a $5 million business, that's the reflection of whatever your makeup is. You got a $50 million business, that's your reflection. And if you got a $500 million business, that's your reflection. Right. That's what I've learned. And I've talked to entrepreneurs in the same markets. I mean, I did one close to you in Fort Lauderdale 6 years ago. Small little company. It was doing about 1.7 million in revenue. And the guy could say nothing good about restoration. Anyway, we got him to exit. A new guy bought it. Couldn't tell you a DHU from an air mover. Couldn't probably tell you that today. Okay. But has grown it like 10x. Right. Okay. In 7 years. Right. Okay. It's just the business is going to reflect what you do. And even in our office, we'll get calls of people wanting to exit. And it's exact. I mean, it's like, it's amazing. Like when revenue is at 1.5 million, they'll call me. Oh, I'm frustrated. I want to sell. You know why? Because what we find at 1.5 million in revenue, you're going from a rainmaker to a team builder. Right. And then they hit the wall. You know what I mean? Oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? And then at like around 3.5 million, we'll get a lot of calls at that level. Right. It's amazing how it works, because now you're going to go from a team builder to like a process and procedure kind of guy, right? Because your team's growing now. You're in the office a lot more. You're probably wearing a shirt like I am. You're not getting out on the field. You need roles, responsibility, accountability, that kind of stuff. And then so people get frustrated. And then,
at around 9 to 10 million also we'll get a lot of calls, because at that point in my
9
mind,
to 10 million, you said 9 to 10 million
in revenues. Yeah. Because at that point you're going to go from what I call process and procedure kind of guy to now you got to become an architect, right? Now you got to think about how do all these things fit together. So I have identified my own kind of 4 roles and transitions that people have to make, from a rainmaker, which is your startup where you're selling, you just want revenue, to a team builder, to a process and procedure guy, to an architect. And, all that, takes you being on the edge, or you're not going to, imagine, I mean, if you want to grow a business from 0 to, let's say, 20 million, you're going to pretty much have 4 careers within that same business.
Right. And you have to be open to that natural evolution of being an entrepreneur, of being a business owner, right? Because look, and I get it, right? We've all been there. In the beginning, when you start, the majority of us bootstrap, right? And we're like, okay, I can't really grow because I don't even have money to grow with. So I'm in the process right now of just making sure that I've got, the bills are paid and food is on the table. Like that's my number one goal. Well, then finally you hit that goal and you're like, okay, I can breathe a little bit. Now what do I do? Right. And then that's when you start expanding on the business. And that's when you start buying some more equipment. Maybe you buy a couple of additional trucks. You do your first, couple of hires, which are typically helpers or technicians or whatever the case may be. Then you hit that next milestone and you're like, okay, good. Now we've got money coming in. I'm comfortable. Now you start focusing on how you can, and this is again, what I've seen happen. Then you start focusing, okay, well, how can I go ahead and make sure that I'm busy 7 days a week and that my crew is busy 7 days a week? You finally hit that goal and you're like, okay, fine. So now here we are. But then, which is right around, I would bargain to say, right around that $1 million to $1.5 million mark. Yeah. That's what I call the middle of the road.
Yes.
Because now you're busy 7 days a week, right? You've got your crew that's busy 7 days a week. You've got a little expansion, but you don't have the time and the financial wherewithal, or you're going to have to take a financial hit in order for you to go ahead and de-bottleneck the company, i.e. remove yourself from the company a bit, in order to go ahead and get additional key players, right? So making that transition into that team building side of the road is definitely a killer for a lot of people.
You're absolutely right. And I can tell you, I think, there's a big difference between making money. And I think when you grow a business from nothing, you got to be willing to make a little bit less every once in a while so you can reinvest back in the company so you can make so much more 2 to 3 years down the road. And that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people. And to me, I think it really comes down to confidence. That's a gut check moment. That's when you're alone, in an office or in a car, and you really look in the mirror and you say, okay,
right.
Do I put this $100,000 in my savings account, or can I bet on myself for like the 3rd time, and kind of come out ahead, or the 4th time or whatever that is,
right.
And do I come out ahead? And I think, it's a gut check moment, and some people can do it, and some prefer not to, and they're both right. I'm not saying one is wrong and one is better than the other. Right. It depends on what you want. But I think for me, it's all about just being aware of it, right? So I think, like you said, if you're in 1.5 million and you don't want to take it to the next step, for example, right, then you should think about exiting, because you can't hang there forever. You're either moving forward or somebody's eating your lunch. I mean, that's just how it's going to happen.
Right. There's no in between. Right.
You can't. There's no such thing as slow and steady. It's either you're moving or you're being taken from.
Right.
And so it just depends, but you got to be aware of it.
Have you noticed for some of the older business owners out there that are looking to exit, have you noticed that technology has hindered their growth, or their lack of adopting new technology hindered their business growth?
Oh yeah, big time. Right. I mean, I think, like, when I go speak, in some of these conventions and things like that, I always talk about red flags, on a business, and what are some of the red flags that you're looking for, and people always call us with, what I call, my 4 reasons. And it usually falls within one of those buckets, right? Hey, I'm burnt out. And that could mean a lot of things, right? you need to be an architect and you are a rainmaker in your business. You're burnt out because it's just going to chew you up. You're doing the wrong thing with the wrong skills. Burnout is one of them, big time, and one of them is tech changes. I mean, people who've done it 20 years ago and 30 years ago, if you're not keeping up with all the technology that's in front of you and the TPAs demanded and the insurance companies demanded, and you don't want to do it, that's okay. But you got to understand that every day somebody's gaining an advantage of you.
Right. So
does that make sense? And
totally makes sense.
Businesses don't decline like weekly, where you see it in 1 week and you're like, oh, I lost market share. It happens so slow that you don't even notice it. And one day you're like, oh my God, how did I get here?
It's like putting on weight. It legitimately is like putting on weight. It's like, you know what, that slice of pizza doesn't really make a difference, right? But then you keep doing that over and over and over again. All of a sudden you look in the mirror one day and you're like, whoa, what happened? How did I get here? Right. So it's that key inconsistency.
And that even happens on the upside, Rico, if you look at the US Open golf, or, I have Wimbledon on my TV here, just on silent watching it, and, you look at like these really tight matches, and, the guy that won like 3 points more than the guy that lost, but he won the match. And how much training goes into me being just 3 points better than you out of like 400 points played in a match. Right. Correct. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. Those small
you look at football's coming up, right?
Right.
Football season. And you're looking at, I'm 1 second faster than you, but that's hours. So, I think.
And the reward is bigger. And the reward is much bigger, right? So that's like the point in entrepreneurship, in business, right? In sports or whatever it is that you're doing, so much more training that you're doing in order to get 1% better doesn't mean that you're having 1% more success. Typically, that 1% better 10x's or 100x's the success of your nearest competitor. So the rewards are drastic, though, if you can get to that playing.
Well, you heard of the term, nose length, right? They use it in horse race.
Yes.
It's that much, but it's like 10 million or second prize, which nobody remembers.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's a nose length. I mean,
yeah, it's not a whole lot. So TPA, let me ask you about TPA work. Have you noticed there being any difference between the companies that are easier to sell if they're doing TPA work or if they're not doing TPA work?
It doesn't matter. I think what's more important is not depending on one source of revenue. Okay, so revenue concentration issues are a bigger issue, right? So we've sold companies with a lot of TPA work. We've sold companies with no TPA work. We've sold companies that have a mix. But here's what we see in our office. Companies that have a balanced approach to generating revenue, buyers will pay more for.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you say, well, I got, 30% of my revenues on TPA, my internet campaigns and all my digital platforms are giving me 25% or 30% of my revenue. I've got 2 people on the road making 40 calls a week, and that generates revenues. And I got whatever, so that generates revenues. Now somebody can look at that and say, it's literally called quality of revenues. Okay, we actually look at that. And that's what you want. You want a high quality of revenue. So if your revenues are skewed one way or completely the other way, it's probably going to devalue your business.
Right. Right. Even though you have the revenue coming in, but also another thing would be how well you can articulate where this revenue is coming from.
Yeah. Here's what people, I think, we're in the restoration business and we've been through our cycles and we've been through downtimes and storms, and we're going to get one here in Florida, probably tomorrow, in landfall. So we've been through it, but you got to understand, I mean, if you look at private equity come to buy you, they don't know an air mover from a DHU.
Right.
Okay. So they're looking at all these revenues, and the reason they're going to pay you a 5X or 6X or whatever is it they're going to pay you is because they're saying, hey, I can count on this revenue 10, 15 years out, and therefore I'm going to pay for that now. Right. I mean, that's the whole reason why people buy stocks.
Basically, forward earnings is what they're looking at.
It's all about future earnings and forward earnings.
Well, typically, what's the multiplier there that most private equity is looking at? Like, what's that number? Is there a magic number for a restoration company? Is it 2 times, 4 times forward earnings? Like, how are they looking at that?
It depends on the size of the business, right? So when you look at,
let's say we're talking about a $5 million business, revenue quality is good. Like they understand their numbers, 25, 25, 25, however it is that they're breaking those numbers up. Typically what would be a good multiplier, 2x, 3x the business?
Yeah. So if you look at revenues, let's just say from 3 million to about 6 million, they're somewhere between a 3 and a 4 multiple,
Okay.
and then if you look at, what I call small to middle companies, says 6 million to about 25 million, they're somewhere between 4 to a 6 multiple,
Okay.
just depending on what it is, and then the really big ones, you can get 7 or an 8 multiple above that. So that's the range that we're playing in at the moment.
Right, because it must be perceived as diversification of risk. The more revenue that you can bring on, even in the case of a recession, although we are in pretty recession-proof style
Correct.
business,
Correct.
All of these things matter.
Oh, big time. I mean, diversification of revenues and the quality of those revenues are probably the most important thing.
What about
because
being
that's
open
what people are buying.
What about being open to transitioning? You and I were speaking briefly off camera about this, about if you have the idea and you have the desire to go ahead and exit, when you have a buyer, you also want to you want to facilitate the sale. You want to eliminate as much friction as possible, just like you would do with anything else in life. So does it help to say, hey, look, you're going to buy the business, but I'm going to be at the helm for the first 6 months, 12 months, whatever the case may be, or this is a transition plan that we already have in place, and this is how we can pretty much assure you that it's going to be nice and smooth. What's your experience on that?
Yeah, so we went and looked at all our transactions, right? We look at that all the time. And it's all about mastering the game. Okay. If you look at exit, starting a company, growing it and exiting it for a lot of money, and there are rules, just like football or whatever sport. There's technologies and strategies to master the game, and we went and looked at it and we found there's about 20 to 25% of companies get multiple offers. They get full price offers. People are just fighting over it. Right. I mean, so the seller's controlling the entire process, right? And so we went and looked at it and we said, okay, what is it going to take to master the game? What are the rules?
Right.
Correct. So I came up with my my power 6, and let's talk about them if you want to. That's
yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Yeah, let's dive into it. So I made some notes here. So financials, correct? Just like we talked about, you want to have clean books. You want to be able to explain where you're getting your revenue. You want to be explaining your expenses. You want to understand some basic financials, okay, which is revenue, quality of revenue, gross margin, net margin, and adjusted earnings. So even if you're not a finance guy and if you're more of an operator, you at least owe it to yourself to understand what these 5 things are, okay? It's part of the game, and if we want to master the game, you're going to have to know it.
Right.
Okay. I mean, yeah, just sit down with your accountant for an hour. They'll walk you through it. No problem.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so you got to know that. Okay. Second is growth potential. Correct. So you got to be able to have a vision, because if you don't have a vision, the buyer is going to impose their vision on you. Okay. And their vision is going to be, let me take out risk. Your vision should be, let me grow.
Right.
Correct. So you got to have a vision. Okay. And then the third one we already talked about out of my power 6, which is, no revenues and customer concentration, right? So you don't want one single source of revenue or one single customer. You don't want to be dependent on one key employee, for example. So if your company is dependent on any one of these, it's going to completely devalue your business. Document how you drive revenue. This is like crazy. I mean, every call, whether it's private equity, individual buyer buying a company, one of the first questions they ask, other than how did you start the business, why you're selling, and then the very third question, always is, how do you generate revenue?
Right, exactly.
So you got to have a plan. Yeah, you got to say, hey, we develop whatever X percentage from TPAs, we do, Y percentage from our 3 sales guys hitting the payment every day, talking to property managers and adjusters. We get 30% from whatever it is, all our digital sales platforms. All these things, right? You got to be able to at a high level articulate that. And it's amazing how many owners don't know where their revenue is coming from.
Right.
Yeah. And then the last 2, I got Google reviews. Okay. So nowadays, a lot of people are checking out your online reviews. I think our industry has been a little bit slow in kind of warming up to that.
It has.
I'll tell you a true story. 2 weeks ago, I had a buyer. It was a business in Indiana, and how about 6 million in revenues? We're on the market for about 4.5 million, and liked it. Okay, went and saw the place, and then went home and started Googling the business. And Yelp had 3 reviews. Google had like 7 reviews, but like 6 of them were bad with no replies. Nobody's replied to it.
Right.
Yahoo had stuff on it. Facebook, people were just chattering online about the company. And it may not be true, but it's just the fact that no one paid attention to it. So he called me back. He goes, Gokul, I love the business, but I don't like what I'm seeing online. I'm not sure that I want to get into a mess. I don't want a turnaround situation. Find me something else. So Google reviews and online presence is becoming, it's much bigger on the buyer side. And I think the sellers are slowly catching up to it, or they should.
So let's cover, and let's circle back to point 5, because I think there's a lot more than what you just discussed packed in there, right? So that we can unpack that 5th one, which is the Google review and the online presence. So I definitely want to circle back to that. So you have one more key point, right?
One more is what we just started the question with is, a transition plan. Okay. Right. So here's what it is. We're all entrepreneurs. Okay. And we have a lot of characteristics around us, and it's good to feel important, and it's good to lead a team. Right. You know what I'm saying? But the real entrepreneurs always have to continue to work themselves out of a job. Okay. So one of your jobs when you start becoming an architect is to work yourself out of a job. And if you could sit in front of a private equity group or one of the national platforms that's trying to buy you out, or even an individual buyer, and you can say, hey, this business is self-managed. Here's my bench strength. Here's my number 2. Here's my number 3. Here's my number 4. I come in and I do important things, but it's not dependent on me. Does that make sense? Absolutely. If you get to that level, boy, you're going to be in high demand.
Right. Because basically now you're the visionary. Like you said, you are in fact an architect of the business. You've already spent the time on creating your digital presence, your physical presence, on a local scale, the community knows who you are. You've invested the time in personnel and finding the right players for the right role, and everybody's on mission. So now in theory, I would assume at this point, you already have all of your SOPs. Everything is outlined. You can remove the CEO at that point, right? The figurehead of the company, and plug in somebody else to go ahead and be the new visionary, and just make sure that all the gears are still rolling. Totally different game.
Here's the thing, man. It doesn't matter, Rico, whether you're private equity chasing, the 10, 20, $50 million deals in our industry. There's a lot of people trying to get national platforms, or, or you're selling to somebody within the business, like a regional player, or a big private equity firm, that's trying to build a $300-500 million portfolio of companies, or maybe, even a national player. There's a lot of them in our industry that are trying to get bigger. There's a huge race to get to $1 billion in revenues, and, right. but it doesn't matter. Or it could be an individual buyer looking at a smaller company.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right. Okay? And revenue.
Nobody's going to pay you for a job.
Right.
It doesn't matter across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, and quick note about revenue, which we've kind of discussed, but I want to unpack this real quick. Revenue really doesn't matter. And people get this confused all the time. Revenue does not matter. Now, I know you're probably listening or watching. You're like, Rico, of course revenue matters. No. And here's why. It's not how much money you make. It's how much money you get to keep, right? So really, what are you keeping? What stays in the business? What's your profit margin? And I would assume that you've seen in your years of selling businesses that you've had some decent companies with great revenue, but however, their net profit margins are razor thin. I'm assuming that has an impact on how attractive it is to buyers in the marketplace, correct?
Yes, I think a lot of times we get too revenue focused in our business. And you know why? And I understand it. It's kind of like a fool's gold, right? You can sit around with your buddies and, hey, I'm a $20 million company and I'm a $50 million company, or I'm a $5 million company, and it's a little bit of a false front, because, I've seen it. I've seen $20 million companies that are not profitable.
Right.
I've seen it. People come to me, can you sell my company? And we do a valuation and we're like, keep it.
Yeah. Well, when I started in the business, when I started our restoration company, I think that part of what allowed me to be successful for the amount of time that I was in the business, our first year, like we just had a blow up year. It was absolutely fantastic. And I couldn't spell the word remediation. Like I just didn't even know the first thing on how this business worked. But because I was naive and I didn't know how the business worked, I came in with my own mindset and I just made it work. Right. Once I was about a year and a half in, I started speaking to other pros in the business because I had my head down for the first year, right? So I think like it was a year and a half we were sitting around and we were talking revenue. We were talking about top line revenue. And mainly because I was picking everybody's brain because I was like, man, this guy looks really successful. He's got like 5-10 trucks on the road. Like he's got a bunch of guys like, wow, that's impressive. So he was just super, super open. He was an older guy, open, if I would have asked him to see his bank account, he probably would have showed me. Like that's how open this guy was. So we started talking about revenue and everything else. And he was doing 10 times the amount of numbers that I was doing. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I'm like, but I always ask the follow-up question. I'm like, how much of that are you actually keeping? When we went pound for pound, and mind you, I was making a fraction of what he was making top line revenue, but I was actually making more than he was.
Correct.
With less overhead, less headaches, more downtime. So I was like, man, there's something to be said there, right? How you can go ahead and build your business to maximize the profitability. Now, again, I understand that once you hit a certain milestone as far as the number is concerned, you're going to have to sacrifice some of that profitability in the name of volume. So I understand that, but not everything is always as it seems. And the big numbers don't always represent what you actually want to do.
So I'll give you an example, a real life example on this, right? So I had a client of mine. It was in, I won't say the state because people will know it. Let's just say it was in the Northeast, right? And, Jeff was a really great guy and had some great revenues. And we just could not get to the valuation that he wanted, for an exit. He wanted to retire. He had a number in his mind. We worked with Jeff for 2 years. And I sat him down and I went through his P&L and I literally took a red marker and I started circling everything. Right. And then I went on a Zoom call like this. I spread it all out and I said, Jeff, let's talk about your business. And I said, here's what I need you to do. You see all this red that I've circled? I need you to eliminate it. He goes, oh my God, I can't do that. I said, yes, you can. Okay. So 2 years later, he eliminated all of those expenses. And what I got him to think about was, you just think, I'm just going to hire a sales guy for 100 grand. Mm. Right. But if you're running at a 20% net margin in your business, that person has to produce 6 times that salary,
right,
to just break even. That's not even for you to make a profit. That's just break even. And that's what I coach my clients all the time is don't look at expenses as dollar for dollar. If you can learn in your mind to think about expenses as a 6X, that's what I call it, where every dollar that you spend, you got to understand that it's going to generate $6 of revenue to just break even. Then all of a sudden you look at your business a completely new light.
Right.
That is my trick. When we coach our guys and our clients, that's the number one thing I teach them.
So the 6X rule, basically.
6X. Anything that doesn't give you a 6X, I want you to redline it and give me a plan in 24 months to get rid of it.
Either get rid of it or create or find a way to go ahead and get to that 6X.
It's tough to. If it's not doing it, you're not going to magically produce a 6X.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. That means you just kind of just like lifestyle creep, there's cost creep in companies, and it's just a cost creep. There's no other way other than to cut it out.
Right.
In my opinion.
So when you're looking at sales reps, right? Because again, a lot of restoration companies use sales reps or reps in the field, and they'll have that $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 yearly salary. So basically what I'm hearing is, hey, look, if you're going to bring somebody in like that, you should be looking at a bare bones minimum. That person needs to go ahead and generate 6X or more of their yearly salary in order for them to not become expendable.
I'll tell you, I own other companies. I'll give you an example. In one of my companies I own, I had a simple thing like trash pickup containers, big containers. Right. They were coming 6 days a week. It was charging me like $800 a month. You know what? Think about that. That's $4,800 in sales just for trash pickup.
Right.
You see where I'm coming at with it? So I said, you know what? Let's just go 2 days on the off season, and the on season we'll go 5. So all of a sudden, there's almost $50,000 of revenue. It's almost like increasing my sales by 50 grand.
Right.
By cutting that expenses by just 4 grand.
And it wasn't a $50,000 expense that you cut. It's not what it was.
No.
This is the magic of numbers. And this is where you really,
that's the magic of expenses, and learning
just understanding
to look at expenses in what I call sales dollars. And that's my term. Right. When I work with clients all the time and they got the revenue, but they don't have the margin, I can double the value of their company. We've done it over and over and over again, just by applying this one simple rule. Right. You know, look at every expense as sales. And now let's go through it and say, do you need it or do you not need it?
Right. So mastering the game, getting back to that, let's go back to point number 5, which is the Google reviews / digital presence, right? I believe that our sector of the market, the restoration sector of the market, is probably the most neglected when it comes to that. There's people with an Instagram following, and really it's just pictures of mold and water all the time. And that's the extent of it. What have you seen, I guess, like actual case studies of some of the best companies out there that are really rocking it with their Google reviews, and they understand the long-term value of this digital real estate and their overall digital presence? Like, what are they doing online? What are they doing on Facebook or YouTube? Are they running ads? Are they doing a lot of organic? Like, how is it that they're really macking the entirety of the game on the digital front?
I mean, listen, you're a digital rock star, right? I mean, I'm not going to tell you something that you don't know. But,
well, for everybody listening, listening.
But, I mean, you're probably much better at this than I am. But let me tell you what I'm seeing in companies that are getting this right. Okay, one is they're making it very important. It's part of their strategic plan. So it's right from the top. You know, it's like, we want to dominate our local market. Okay. Second, they're not outsourcing it.
Amen.
You understand where I'm coming? So they're not sending it to some marketing guy that's got 500 accounts and they're just cookie cutter, going.
So let me pause you here, because the one thing that I've been advocating, as a matter of fact, I have a course, which is called Google Ads Domination for contractors and entrepreneurs. And the one thing that I preach the most is you have to get familiar with the digital marketing game. You have to. I'm not telling you that, and I get what a lot of entrepreneurs say. They say, hey, I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the time to do it, so I'm not going to dedicate time to learning how it works. And in my opinion, that is the worst business decision that you can make, because if you can take 4 days out of your life to get an IICRC certification, you should be able to take 4 to 5 days, or however long it takes you, an hour a week, to get familiar with the terminology and how things work. And then if you decide to outsource it or to bring somebody in-house to do it, right? So that way it's part of their company culture. That, I believe, is going to drastically change the overall digital presence that a company has, in their local market and wherever it is that they want to go from there. Because once you understand digital marketing, if I wanted to go to California tomorrow, I can, before I even get there, I can be generating leads.
Yes.
And when you do that, you have a key to print money, right? So that is such a great point that you just made, is just, having an understanding of it or bringing it in-house so that way it's part of the company culture.
Part of mastering the game is to master your revenue sources and to control it. Okay. So if you don't have complete control over your revenue sources, you're not going to master the game of business. You're just not. It's really, really that simple. And what I see a lot is, one is that the guys that are getting it right are, one, they're putting it as part of the strategic plan, right? It's in their top 3. So it becomes important to them. Therefore, it becomes important to everybody else.
Right.
So if it's not important to you, you can't just go walking around the hall preaching it. Okay. Right. It's got to be in your top 3. Okay. 2 is they're not outsourcing it. They're bringing it in-house. Okay. 3 is these guys totally understand it's a long game and it's not a magic pill.
Right.
Correct. I know companies that are dominating and growing. Okay. Just dominating online doesn't make any sense. You needed to translate it to revenue and profit. So I know companies that are getting incredible revenues and profits of all of their digital marketing and their presence, but they started 4 years ago.
Right.
correct? But now they're so far ahead of everybody, you can't stop that train anymore. They got so much pieces of content out there. They've got so much videos, blogs. They're building such a great relationship with everybody in their community.
Right.
That it's tough for somebody else to come in there and say, well, me too.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, if you think of it in terms of real estate, they kind of have gone and picked the best corner spot in downtown Main Street, and now nobody else can get it. But it takes 3 years minimum to do it.
Or with, again, going back to the digital marketing side of things, or if you have an understanding of digital marketing, now what you can do is you understand your local market, you understand your competitors, and you basically start hacking what it is that they do. In other words, you look at their social media profiles and say, okay, cool. Where are they getting the most amount of engagement? Where is this group? And then you start creating content. And look, organically, you're not going to beat them because they've been doing it for 4 years. But you know what you can do? You can definitely have ads and sponsored posts that are going ahead and you're directing it right to the people that matter to you. Before you know it, now you're everywhere, right? YouTube is one of these areas that I firmly believe is the next big thing for people to really take advantage of, right? Because number one,
what do you mean next big thing, man? I would argue that it's already happening.
It is, but what I mean by that, look, it's definitely one of the biggest platforms out there. What I mean by the next big thing is not everybody knows that it's huge. Everybody goes on YouTube at least once a week. Like I would argue almost everybody does. However, business owners are not using it yet from an ad standpoint in order to generate revenue.
Of course, absolutely.
So they're using Google Ads. They're using Google Ads. Sometimes they'll take a picture and they'll boost that post on Facebook, and they think that that's running traffic. There's a lot of other things that people are doing. However, very few people are willing to pick up the phone and just do a quick video and say, "Hey, how's it going? My name is so-and-so. This is my company. I realize that blah, 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 blah," and post that as an ad on YouTube, and pound for pound, 3 cents to 4 cents a video view. It's kind of hard to beat.
You know what, doing these videos, that's how you found me. You probably saw some of my stuff. It's just a great way to just build relationship. That's how people should think about it. I mean, there's a lot of tech, and I think sometimes people get scared of it because it is technical at some point. You can get people to do that for you, but I think at the most basic concept, I think all these platforms is just a great way to leverage, scale, and build meaningful relationships with your people. It's not about just getting on the phone and just going blah 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 blah. Me. It's about saying, hey, whatever, storm season is coming, and here's how you take care of whatever ABC, or Elsair's coming to Florida. If you're a Florida contractor, for example, here are the 3 things that you need to be able to do. Or It's meaningful content, and I think that relationship you can build with YouTube, with ads, content on your website. I think as long as you speak to your audience, that's the low-hanging fruit. I'm telling you, there's some guys like you and a couple of the newer guys or the cutting edge guys coming into the industry that are absolutely hitting it off the ballpark.
We see a lot more.
It's always the same.
We see a lot more of the digital marketing guys in the roofing side. I think the roofing niche, I really feel, has really gotten it, right? Because now you see guys that are consistently doing videos, they're running Facebook ads, they're running YouTube ads, they're doing everything. Like if you need a roof, somebody's finding you in the digital space. Like they're on top of you, right? But yet on the restoration side, we don't see a lot of it. And I fell victim of this myself, where I was like, you know what? My audience really isn't on Facebook. What are the odds of someone seeing my ad as they're walking into their home and they just so happen to have a flood? So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to spend money on that. However, when you give it a little bit more thought and you dig a lot deeper, you realize that there's a lot of ways that you can go ahead and have an engaged audience with top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and bottom of the funnel transactions, and each of which have their own set of metrics, each of which have their own different return on investment, if you will, and they're all equally important. So I think for long-term sales, right, is saying, hey, look, how am I building something long-term that is really attractive, digital marketing has to be a staple in everybody's marketing. Period.
I think an easy way for your audience to look at it, who are not maybe that digitally inclined or trying to get their hands around it at the moment, is you guys, when you hire a digital person or a marketing manager or a marketing coordinator for your team, you just got to look at that person as your salesperson. That's just like the easiest way to do it, right? You just say, you know what, that person's going to do what they're going to do, but they're going to give me X amount of leads and they're going to manage the funnels for me. And so it's basically a salesperson, but you can track it better. Like instead of sending someone in a car to go talk to 40 property managers every week, you don't know where that business is coming from. And you kind of know those relationships are there, but you really don't.
Right.
But if you have the same salary into like a digital marketing person on your team,
right,
that understands your business, because everything you do has to be authentic. You cannot just farm it out and say, I'm going to get great results from it. It's got to come from within your organization. You look at that person as a salesperson. I think that might be an easier way to look at it.
Yeah, no, and I agree, because now you have a set salary, you have whatever it is your internal metrics are, but now you can definitely say, hey, look, I know how much money I have invested in this one task or this series of tasks. I need to go ahead and have X amount of return, not only for me to break even, but then also, okay, what's my return on ad spend? Because basically you just bundle them into that ad spend category. So yeah. It's great. And then it just gives you so much more control. I mean, I wish I could tell you how many times I've been driving or taking a shower or something, right? Doing something not related to business. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, this is such a great marketing idea. The power that comes with opening up your laptop and just getting it done is amazing. Or having someone on your staff and you can say, hey, by the way, I had this great digital marketing idea. I want you to go ahead and create a thumbnail that looks like this, this, and this. You know what our company mission is. All right, let's go ahead and get it rolled. Within an hour, you could have stuff live. Whereas if you just farm this out, outsource it to a regular digital marketing agency who has another 400 clients, how long is it going to take for your idea to be turned around? So to have a working knowledge and to bring it in-house is definitely a huge takeaway, I think.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot. I mean, the guys that are really hitting it off the ballpark on the digital space, on their Google reviews and all things digital, they all have something in common, which is they have, they're called by different names, but somebody in marketing on the org chart.
Right.
Yeah, they really do. Digital marketing, I'm talking about. There's a lot of names for this, different people call the position different things, but they have one person in charge of website, reviews, marketing strategy, ad spend, all that digital platform. Right. Absolutely.
And that's their department. And that's
their department. Yes. Right. And they're part of the staff meetings. They're part of the strategic meetings. I mean, they're literally in the office, on the W-2, on payroll, doing what they do best.
So what would you recommend, knowing how important this is, right? What would your recommendation be to the smaller organization, the guy in the truck who has a couple of helpers, the small business owner who has maybe 2 or 3 trucks on the road and feels apprehensive about making that hiring decision? Like, what would your recommendation be?
I think it all comes to, again, studying the mastery and studying the game. And I think you got to study the guys that have done it really, really well. And I think it could be really simple. I mean, it's like taking one of your classes, for example, or it could be like just Googling it, right? Just get online on a Friday afternoon, one afternoon, and just say, okay, what is all this about? And just, I think sometimes you just start,
right?
You don't plan, you just start kind of putzing around and get yourself, spend 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. And then, as you start getting educated, you can do it. And I also think, like we talked about it earlier in your podcast, I mean, you talk about mentors. I mean, there's people in our industry. One of the great things about our industry is people help each other quite a lot, especially if you're not in the same market. Right. There's a lot of reach out and mentoring going on. And even I've got some great mentors in this industry, like I thought I would never have, I mean, guys are running $300, $400 million companies, and they're like, I call them up and they take my call. They'll spend 20, 30 minutes with me. They'll give me introductions, so we got a good tight-knit industry. I think most people help each other out. And I think it's just about reaching out to people that have done it really well. Like you can even start by you like somebody's website, just reach out to them.
Hey,
yeah. Just start there and just say, hey, how did you do it? Or who did it for you? Or you just start there, or you go to another city, for Thanksgiving, or you go somewhere to another city and you see somebody dominating in that space, just reach out to them. That's where you start.
Yeah. And it's amazing, and again, this is a topic that I've spoken about quite a bit. And I really do believe this, that the people aren't as guarded as you would initially think that they are. If you see an entrepreneur out there, a business owner who is successful, or is striving towards success, right? In other words, they're just moving forward. And you go to that person, you say, hey, you know what? I see what you're doing. I think that this is awesome. How did you, what was your thinking? All of a sudden, these people like open up, right? Because everybody, I think at their core, especially as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you're so in your lane, but at the same time, you're also willing to kind of look back and be like, okay, what could I give you of value that's going to help you on your journey, right? Like nobody's looking to beat anybody up, right?
I think that's all the movies, man. You hit the nail on the head. I think, I'm going to crush the competition. And I don't see it in our industry. I was just at the RIA conference and I saw competitors sitting and having a beer, at the bar together and having a great conversation and exchanging stories. So I think our industry is more friendly than what people think it is. And I think a lot of times, like I tell my guys, my team, sometimes you just got to ask for the order. I mean, that's 90% of the thing. You just got to ask.
You're speaking my language, man. You're speaking my language. That's the 90% of success is just asking.
You just ask.
People always ask me, Rico, like, how do you do the sales that you do? Because the majority of our business has been cash driven, no AOBs, no nothing. It's been cash driven and we've done pretty well. And we're like, how do you do that? It's like, simple. You want to know my secret to my great sales pitch? They're like, yes. Like, ask for the order. Ask for the order. You get stuck in the presentation, stop, ask for the order.
Would you like to do it or not? What can I help you to sign? What's it going to take for you to sign? What's it going to take? I want your business. What's it going to take?
Right.
It's very, very simple and cordial and pleasant. It doesn't have to be salesy. It doesn't have to be, a lot of people think like it's a game or you're trying to scam somebody by asking for the order. You're not. I just really feel that as an entrepreneur, that's probably one of the most important skills you got to have, is you got to be able to reach out to people and say, hey, what's it going to take for us to create a win-win? Or what's it going to take for us to do business? Or what's it going to take for you to sign that PL or to give us your work, whatever it might be, right? Or what's it going to take for us to do business with your 40 properties you manage? I don't care what that question is. I think it's very, very, very simple. You got to ask for the order and you're 90% ahead of the game.
And then the other portion of that is how strong is your follow-up game?
Yeah.
Your follow-up game.
I mean, most of the money is in follow-up.
Most of the money is in follow-up. Those one-hit wonders, those one-call closes, those are sexy. Everybody wants to go ahead and talk to their buddies about the one-call close. That's great. But the real magic in business is the follow-up and how frequently you can go ahead and touch this prospect via social media versus, chunky mail, like whatever your metric is, but just make sure that you're consistently touching base with them. And there's so many softwares now that help with that, right? There's ringless voicemails, right? Text messaging broadcasts, chatbot, like so many different mediums, and it all can be so personalized. So if you're trying to go after a property management company or, just customers that have inquired about your services or have bought from you before and you're looking for a referral or a Google review, whatever, all of this can sound 100% customizable and like it's you physically sending that message, but it's all automated, which is a beautiful thing.
You would talk about tech, and of course we use it even in our firm. Follow-up is the real player is follow-up.
Right.
But it could also be as simple as like I do it, like every week I make 5 phone calls.
Right.
It's a simple, and it's not like I'm sitting in my office and making it, I don't know, man. Like on Friday afternoon, sometimes I'll just skip out. I'll go to Starbucks. I'll grab me a cup of coffee. If it's nice here in Florida, I'll sit outside. Each call is set 15 minutes and I'll just call somebody, I'll be like, hey, Rico, what's going on? I haven't spoken to you in 6 months. And, what's going on with your business? And sometimes, I've got the best orders from not even talking business. It's just like, hey, what's going on? And it's just the fact that you followed up and you connected,
right?
Is important. So yeah, it can be done. It can even be done with a phone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. On the phone, I mean, again, a lot of people don't pick up the phone nowadays, right? Which is also a weird thing that's happened with technology. You know, so many people are hiding behind the keyboard and hiding behind, all of these bots, which is great. I think there's a time and a place for them. But then again, just something about the warmth of hello over the phone. I took the time to,
or a simple text message.
You
can even cut and paste the same text message over and over. Right. Or use one of the softwares you got. Yeah. Send 20 a week, and somebody's going to return back to you. And it's a funny saying in my firm. I tell in my staff meeting, every meeting, it's part of my agenda. It's number 5 on my agenda every Monday morning. So we talk about 4 things, and then the 5 never moves. It's always there. Okay, which is in our firm, we call it RBA. We always call it RBA as a contact sport. And I literally have it for years. I've had it because the thing about calling people and contacting people and following up people is so easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And I think that's the trick.
Right.
That's where it's easy to just kind of say, I'm going to go home, or, I'll do it tomorrow, because it's so easy to do. It's so easy not to do.
Right.
So I think you just got to do it.
Right. And also,
I always tell my guys, it is a contact sport. It's not email. It's not hiding behind, it's about picking up the phone, calling the guys.
And a lot of it has to do with just rejection, right? A lot of people don't do it because after a while they get, let's say that there's 100 people on their list that they need to call. They make the first 5 phone calls. Either they didn't get a hold of someone, they were rude, or they already have a working relationship with somebody. So all of a sudden the salespeople or the rep or the business owner, right? All of a sudden you start getting in your head and you're like, hey, look, these people have already got a working relationship. Why would they want to deal with me? They're dealing with a bigger company with a better reputation, who's been around longer. Why would they want to deal with me? And the reality is that there's only one of you. And what you're really hunting for, right, is the relationship. Like, can you click with this other person better than their current relationship, right? Can you
hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. So,
if you're authentic, here's what I say, and I do it for my own, if you're authentic and just be yourself. You'll see some of my videos, like, I'm going to the gym. I got a baseball hat on and I'm like, hey, today I just did this, so, it's just me, some people may not like it and some people will, but what you're trying to connect to is people that can relate to you. And I think part of business is you just can't take it personal. There's some people you're just not going to get along with, or some people have deep relationships that are good. And you're not going to get in there. But guess what? It's part of business. And I think a better mindset for that stuff is just to say, I'm trying to find people that are on purpose with me, that are on purpose with my mission and vision. And you don't need a lot of them. I mean, listen, you can go to a city in, I don't know, let's just take Miami, for example, whatever, or here, Orlando, or any other city in the world. Man, you can have 10 meaningful relationships and blow your business up. You don't need 50.
Right.
I mean, if you get 10 guys who are managing property to like you, and you are their number one, and they are your core, and you take care of them and they take care of you, you can exponentially grow your business. So you're not looking for 200 connections.
Right.
You're looking for 10 to 20 meaningful connections. Right. It doesn't take a lot, I think, personally.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't. I mean, really, it could just be as simple as just one relationship that is well-connected, that takes a liking to you, to your organization, to your company mission, to whatever it is that you're doing, to totally send you down a whole new path in your business to where you could double, triple your business just based off that one connection that you made that, just worked out. So it's really just that easy. It's so easy, like you said, that it's also easy not to do. And then
I think you got to be really aware of that. I always tell my staff that, hey, if it is so easy, remember, it's also easy not to do.
Right.
So do it.
Because it seems so meaningless. The action itself. And I think the part of what holds so many people back from doing it is just that the action seems so meaningless, right? Because we've all have had that weird, awkward call, and they call you up and they're like, hey, Rico, how's it going? Yeah, I'm so-and-so from ABC Company. Just wanted to see what we could do for you. And you could just tell that it has no substance to it, right? So I think that part of it is what makes it so difficult is that we get jaded and like, you know what? I don't want to be that guy. Like, I don't want to sound like that guy. Like I've got my hand out. We're looking for business. And really, I think if you can make a mental shift and not looking at like, hey, what can this person that I'm about to reach out to, what can they do for me? And you really turn that on its head and be like, hey, look, I know that I've got a superior product or service or advice or whatever it is that I have. I want to go ahead and lead with all of that first and see if they can react to that and if they can use what I have. And if there's money that's going to come down the pike based on that, then great. But if all it did was create a good relationship, a good conversation, if you were able to help them and guide them in the right direction on how to maximize their existing relationship, even something as simple like that, that holds so much currency. Right? Karmic currency that no one can really even put a dollar figure on. So you just have to plant those seeds day in and day out, month in and month out, and have consistency. And I think that's where you see your business go to the next level.
And I agree with you. And I always tell my team too, here's another saying for your audience, the people that are listening, I always say, even to myself, really, like, if it's not scheduled, it doesn't exist. And so I always say that. And so, like, I just know, like, on Fridays at 2:00, I make my calls, and that's kind of end of the day. I get out of the office. I try to sneak out a little bit early, and I got to go see my kids, and I want to kind of go hang out with them. They got their ninja warrior gym thing classes and all that they're doing. So, at 2:00, normally 1:30, I'm out of there, because I know from 2 to 3, I'm making those calls, and then I want to get out of there to go hang out with my family. So I think if you just schedule it, like, just one day a week for like an hour, and everybody knows, like, don't bug me during that hour, I think you're probably more apt to do it.
Right. Or just if you're really, really an introvert, you don't like making the phone calls, hire someone because it's an important task. Right?
I agree with you. Yeah.
If you just know that's not who you are, to be honest with you, I'm not a person who likes to reach out to people. I've done it. I've done it more than most people out there, because again, I used to make 700 phone calls a day. It was stupid. Right. Yeah. So, but in my core, like, I don't like to, right. But what I do like is to have meaningful conversations, right? So what I'll do is, on the digital side, I'll have other people do like quick introductions. And then if I have a warm body who did a response and we went back and forth that way first, then I'll jump in and then I'll kind of pick up the relationship from there, right? So you got to find what works for you. So let me ask you this. I don't know if we covered this, but I know that off camera we were talking about, you had this great thing that you have for defining an entrepreneur. And I want to kind of, dive into that, because I think it's a really interesting breakdown that you have for defining an entrepreneur. They're different levels.
So we went and surveyed a lot of people on why they started a business, and I thought it was really interesting, right? And we came up with about 6 buckets of why people got into restoration and what their replies were. We went and surveyed like 2,000 companies, and I'll read it out to you. It's really interesting. So here was a question: why did you get into restoration and start a business, right? So it came into I want to create financial freedom for myself and my family. That was number 1, and that kind of comes back to my point, like, if you're going day to day running your business for a paycheck, and at some point, whether it's now or 30 years from now, you're not able to sell your business, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So it's really, really important to have a business that's sellable, not today, but whenever you're ready to do it. Correct? Second is, I want to control my time. I want a feeling of empowerment. I want security for my family. I want to help those I love and those in need. Okay, that was a big one. Most of the people in our business, they make people in a very vulnerable stage in life. The houses got burnt down and things got flooded. There's a lot of people, in our industry that truly, genuinely want to help people, which is really, really cool. Every time I go to conferences, I see that, and it's awesome. And the last one was, it's exciting, to start a business and to grow it. So Those are the reasons why people get into it. Okay. And then you look at, once you get into it, I kind of would add like a second bucket to it, where we started looking at, studying the top 20% of companies that got great value, not just from a number standpoint. Like, there were even people that had a $1 million company, but they were happy and the business was running well and it was clicking on all cylinders and they were content. And to me, that's success,
right?
For them, and it's success for anybody. So we went and said, okay, what did those companies, what do they have in common, or what is the difference, between people that run those kind of companies. And, just some food for thought. You look at it as, some people, you look at it, is the business an asset or is it a tool, right? Like, who's the master?
Right.
Are you the master? For others, we found like business is just their entire life. Hey, I've been in it for 10, I'm going to be in it for another 30, and it's everything I do. And, it's my life, and then we looked at some owners are controlling the business much better, than others. Sometimes we found like the businesses is controlling a lot of entrepreneurs where they've given up a lot for the sake of the business, and they think that's the norm. And I want to challenge them and say it's not. Find new ways to control your business. And business also has a power. We talked about it before the show. It has the power to create. It also has the power to destroy your life.
Absolutely.
And I think you got to be really, really, really careful of what you want the business to do for you. I think that it starts there. Right. If you wanted to give it a paycheck, that's okay. Then that's what it is.
Or a lifestyle business, which is perfectly fine as well. Look, I mean, there's plenty of guys that I know that use the restoration business as a lifestyle business because all they have to worry about is a couple of big projects a month. They go off on vacation with their family. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the moment that you start feeling the noose around your neck, and you're like, man, this isn't exactly like, why did I get into business? It was financial freedom. Do I have the financial freedom? Yes or no? Or if you do have the financial freedom, but now you don't have the control over your time, now all of a sudden you start feeling resentful towards your business. Right. You're not as engaged. You don't care about it as much. You don't feel like you can have an offering to the community and the people that you serve because now you're not happy. You're no longer fulfilled, right? So keeping, I think, this list of reasons that you got into the business in the forefront of your mind. I mean, hell, put it up on a wall. Why is it? And do that as a morning check and say, hey, look, I got into the business because I wanted A, B, and C. That's now, where am I currently today? Do my feelings feel different than how this piece of paper here, this reminder makes me feel? And then figure out where the disconnect is. And from there, I think it gives you a good opportunity to start making small tweaks so that way you can get back on track with your actual mission.
Oh, yeah. Well said. Absolutely. Why you start the business and what it means to you and that's the seed of everything. And I think a lot of times, like people talk about going back to your roots, like a lot of times people go visit the home that they grew up in, or, it's an 800 square foot home and it kind of connects them back to why you did it. Athletes do it all the time. Like when they get burnt out, sometimes they'll take a break and they'll say, why do I even play this game? And I got to find my joy again. And, these are NBA, NFL athletes that do that, and I think our life is just as important as entrepreneurs, and I think every so often we got to go back to our roots and say, why did we start it? And what is its meaning in my life? What does it mean to me? Do I let it control me? Do I control it? Is it an asset? Is it something I do for life? I think those two questions are critical. And I think every entrepreneur should go back to it every so often.
Right. Yeah. It just helps you set the sail to where you originally wanted to go, because it's so easy in the day-to-day to get lost in what it is that you're doing, to be so caught up in a task or in a project that you forget the underlying mission of what that task or what that project is actually working towards getting you. Do you know what I mean? Right. So it's important to take a step back every once in a while. This is where I also believe, like, writing your ideas down, journaling, carry with you something that you can consistently write your thoughts down with. I know that a lot of people do it. I also know there's a lot of people that don't do it. Yes. And it's so empowering to look back, and humbling, by the way, to look back at where you thought you were going to be while you started something, and then gauge yourself, like, man, am I really living up to my full potential? And if not, it gives you an opportunity to kind of recheck yourself.
Clarity is progress. And I think the more clear someone is, the easier you can move towards it. And I think, a lot of it is pretty easy to do. I think where people, at least in my experience, is, when you don't have clarity of where you want to go, then it gets really, really difficult. It's kind of like going left and then going right, and then going left and then going right, and then going backwards and forwards, and you're not going to get anywhere, but you're working like hell. Right. We've seen so many of those. And I think it's It's just important. Hey, I'm going to take 3 left turns and a right turn, and I get there, and it becomes easy. So clarity is really, really important for entrepreneurs.
Clarity is progress, folks. Clarity is progress.
Clarity is progress.
I agree.
Clarity is calmness. Clarity is peace. Clarity is being authentic. I mean, I can go on and on like clarity, clarity. And, listen.
It gets you through the rough times. Having clarity allows you to endure a lot of the pains of the entrepreneur. Look, what we do, a lot of people don't get, right? The majority of America clocks in, they hate their job, right? The majority of them hate their job.
Oh, of course.
But they clock in, but they know that at 5 or 6 o'clock, that when they clock out, they're not thinking about anything related to work. Like, that's it. They're done for the day, right? The entrepreneur wakes up an entrepreneur, gets beat up the way that an entrepreneur gets beat up, great, has his great wins, right? Celebrates when he needs to celebrate. But typically right after that celebration, something else happens and you're scrambling again. And by the time that the day is done, you went to bed an entrepreneur. So it's a nonstop mental attitude. So it's easy to get tripped up over the small things. And this is where I totally agree with your statement. Clarity is progress, and clarity can give you that peace that you need in order to make the smart decisions moving forward for your business.
Right. And clarity helps you win the game, and I always talk about mastering the game. And I think it always starts with a playbook, and, just like a football coach would have, or whoever, and I think the clearer your playbook is, the easier it would be for you to make those plays. I think, it's to me, I don't know. It's so simple that most people don't do it. And I think that's the problem with it, and I can maybe motivate your audience to say, take some time in mastering the game, and mastering the game is 2 things. Why did you start the business? What does that business mean to me? How much do I want to control it? Do I want to let it control me? How much am I giving up for it? And if you say I'm okay with it, then that's okay. But I just say you need to just ask those questions.
Right.
So that's how you master the game.
So switching gears here for the audience and making it just a tad bit more tactical. Let's just assume that there's somebody who's watching this, listening to this right now. They're not at the $3 million to $5 million mark. Maybe they haven't even reached the $1 million mark. What would be tactical, actionable, strategic advice that you would give someone right here, right now to say, hey, look, this is what you should be doing on your personnel side, on your digital presence side, on your mindset side. Take these steps, call me in 12 months. Let's see where you are at.
Yeah, really interesting. Again, we just finished talking about clarity. And I think, people need to understand why they own the business. Correct? And then it's very easy. You say, I'm here, I want to be here, and what's standing in the way? And I always ask them to come up with 3 initiatives that's standing in the way. Right? I call it a 1-3-5 plan. That means the most important goal for the 12 months, 3 initiatives to support that goal, and then 5 action items under each one of those initiatives. Okay? It fits on one piece of paper. It takes 30 minutes to do. Okay?
So one goal, 3 objectives to support that goal, and 5
action items under each of those 3 objectives. So you'll have 15 action items to complete in 1 year.
Right.
I mean, simple.
Perfect.
Right? And it is amazing. In fact, I don't write big business plans in my own company. I never have. I've always done a 1-3-5. I use it almost every day. I literally have it on my desktop. So every time I open my computer, it's right in front of me in a little PowerPoint slide.
Nice.
That's it. It's a 1-3-5 plan. And I'll send you a copy if you want to throw it up on your site.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If you want to go download it, they're welcome to download it. But to me, that is the easiest. It takes 30 minutes to do. You can even take a picture of it and keep it on your phone. But what it does is if you reduce what you need to do in like one piece of paper, it again brings you clarity in what's most important. So picking the single most important goal, that's it. And then everything else supports it.
Right.
And you can absolutely transform your business.
That's amazing.
Absolutely transform your business.
On one piece of paper.
One piece of paper, a
all
1-3-5.
Done.
Right. I literally have it on my desktop right now.
And
if
then
I share my desktop, I can share. Huh?
And then it's just a matter of actually taking action. You wrote it down. Now you got to pick yourself up by the bootstrap and just pick 2.
That's all I do. What I do is I'll go back and I'll just highlight like 2 of them because I still got to run my company, So I'll highlight 2. And you know what? When it's done in 4 weeks, I'll highlight 1 more.
Right.
But you know, you don't know the progress every day, but you can look back like in 6 months and you can see your business is absolutely transformed.
Right.
I mean, absolutely transformed.
Right. And scheduling it, right? Scheduling, like you said previously, it's not, if it's not on the schedule, it just simply doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So a lot of people use tasks, right? And sometimes, you know, there's software out there like Asana or a Monday.com, tons of other, right? Trello. And a lot of people love these, like, you know, task to-do lists. The other great way to do this, besides the tasks, is just schedule time for the project. And don't look at it as a task. Just say, hey, look, I'm going to dedicate an hour a week or whenever it is that you can fit it into your schedule to work on this. And this, what this does is it actually eliminates the feeling that you have to get the task done today. But what it does, it allots a certain amount of time for you to only concentrate on that one thing. And then miraculously, what happens is even if you didn't get the task done, what you do feel accomplished because you were able to dedicate 100% of your mental bandwidth to that 1 hour or 30 minutes or whatever time you allocated to that task. And before you know it, that task is totally done. So that's something that really helps as far as scheduling all the important things of your business that need to be done.
You want to hear another nugget that I use all the time?
Absolutely.
Right. What I find is most entrepreneurs, when it comes to these tasks, they feel like they got to do a lot of things in a short period of time. But when I went and studied of winning the game and mastering the game, what I found is companies that do really well and entrepreneurs that do really well do very few things, but for long periods of time.
Right.
You know, and I think sometimes in our world, you know, there's always the next Monday.com or the next Asana or the next this or the next that. I don't think it matters. That's just my own personal opinion. I mean, listen, I do it on a notebook.
Right.
Remark, you know, it's just a little electronic notebook.
By the way, how do you like that thing? Wait, hold on. You love that thing? I've seen, I have,
I spent, you know, I got this about a month ago, 2 months ago. And what I do is at 1 o'clock, I shut down my computer. So I'm no longer in front of my computer for half a day.
Right.
And I literally leave the office. I'll go sit in the lobby or I'll go grab a Starbucks somewhere and I shut it down. And I just make my list and I come at it and we're so productive.
Yeah.
And that comes back to me saying, I think, you know, one of my things I've noticed is, you know, great companies do very few things well.
Right.
And they do it for long periods of time. And a lot of entrepreneurs feel like they got to do a lot of things in a very compressed period of time. And I don't think that's the mode to be in. You know, I think
absolutely not.
Pick your one goal and just attack it for a year, and with 15 initiatives, you know, 3 objectives and all supporting one goal. And so you're doing the same thing over and over and over. And to me, that's where meaningful progress comes in. It really does. And for years, I've never done more than a 1-3-5 plan. Just never have done it.
Right.
And it's worked wonderful for us.
Well, it's because it seems like everything that you genuinely need that's important is broken down in a systematic way to say, hey, look, this is what I'm really looking to achieve. These are the things that are standing in the way. These are the action plans that I need to go ahead and do. Done. Now we start working towards that. And something comes to mind, which is true, that I've heard in the entrepreneurial space, that people overestimate what they can accomplish in a year, but they underestimate what can be accomplished in a decade. Right. Yes. And I think that part of that is that slow and steady wins the race, and just being able to stick with it. That's the real magic, being able to stick with it and doing the things that are almost frivolous that have the most amount of impact in your business, right? Because sometimes you just take things for granted and you're like, I'll just make that phone call tomorrow. Well, that one phone call, you know, done over and over and over again.
That's 30 phone calls you missed in a month.
That's 30 phone calls you missed in a month. And it's funny, right? Like, you know, 5 years sounds like a long time when you're in it. Like as you're working through the day, 5 years feels like a long time. But now if you close your eyes for a second and just think about how fast this last 5 years passed, it almost feels like a blink of an eye.
Yeah, right? I think there's like this whole thing in America, especially with entrepreneurs and small business owners. And I don't know where it came into the fabric of our country. Like you have to sacrifice and you got to put in long hours and you got to attack. And you got to do everything great. And but when I went and studied the guys that have truly mastered the game, they're doing the exact opposite. You know what I mean? I mean, you look at from Warren Buffett all the way down. I mean, to restoration owners, they're doing the opposite. Listen, I didn't get into business to work 80 hours. I don't think I've ever put in 80 hours. And when clients are reading this, they were like, what the hell, But I don't.
Right.
I don't. That's not what I got into business for.
Right.
And I think there's this whole culture of go, attack, shotgun approach. But the real masters are picking them off one at a time.
Right. And I think that they concentrate a lot more on how can I buy back my time? How can I take the effort and the money that I've made with that effort and then implement strategies or processes or employees so that I can buy back my time and then concentrate what appears to be less time, but much more focused in the areas that are strong to me, that are really going to move the needle. Because I can only shake so many hands per day, right? And maybe I'm really good at that. And if that's the best thing that I was at, if I was the best at just, networking and that's my thing, then maybe that's what I should dedicate my time to. But if I'm really good as a business owner at, at the vision, and that's genuinely what I'm good at, that's what you should be spending the most of your time on. And then have all of these other players that are helping you with that mission.
I 100% agree with it. I totally get it. And I think, like I said, it's all about mastering the game and finding out what does business mean to you. And it's not your life. It shouldn't be. It's a tool. It's an asset. And it should serve a purpose in your life. And if it doesn't serve it, you get rid of it and you find something else that does. And I think, a lot of entrepreneurs feel like they just got to work 8 to 10 to 15 hours a day. And I don't see that with the masters of our industry. I see them being a lot more focused and rest is also the other side of productivity. Without rest, there's no productivity also. So my message is a little bit different. It's a little bit counterculture. But I've spent a lot of time studying the top 20% in our industry.
Yeah. And here's another thing about work-life balance, right? Because really what you're talking about now is work-life balance, right? Hey, dedicate X amount of time to work. Don't work yourself to the bone, but then also have balance. Here's the one thing I will say about entrepreneurship. And that is sometimes people strive towards perfect work-life balance. And that's not entrepreneurship either. In most cases, because I think if you look at really successful entrepreneurs, what they've had is a massive discrepancy, right? Like massive disalignment in work-life balance. Overall, in the long term, there is a balance. But sometimes if you've got this big project or this big goal, you're going to put in the 14-hour days. You're going to but it's in small concentrated spurts of time. And then you kind of realign and you balance yourself back out. And then you're going to have, maybe too much time that you're spending with friends and family. And then you're like, okay, wait, hold on. Now we got this new project, right? So overall, I think that finding work-life balance, everybody needs to find whatever that means for them and how it fits into their business and their, look, at the end of the day, you're the one that's waking up looking at yourself in the mirror. You're the one that goes to bed at night say, did I feel good? Like if I spend more than 3 days on vacation, I'm like, oh my God. All of a sudden I'm not enjoying my vacation anymore. Right. So you got to know what makes you tick. So let me ask you this. What are your top book recommendations that you would make for any entrepreneur to read?
Oh my gosh. Interesting. So the book I'm reading right now called The Compound Effect.
The Compound Effect. Okay.
Yes. Okay. To me, that's really interesting how small little micro habits have huge impacts over time in your life. I think that's a really, really, really interesting book. And I also think the book I'm reading right now is The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama.
Yep.
Because I also think, business and life should coexist. And I think one without the other doesn't make a rich life. And so
So the compound effect and the art of happiness, which Art of Happiness, by the way, is a fantastic book. I read it several years ago.
You're right. It's an old book. Man, I think I'm reading it like for the 5th time,
Oh yeah.
Trying to get the handle on it.
Yeah. There's certain books that are just so fantastic to read over and over and over again. The one book that I read consistently, actually there's several books that I read consistently, one of which is The Greatest Salesman in the World.
Yeah. Great book.
By Ogmandino. Small, one-day read. You can read through it in a day. You shouldn't read it. You should actually read it the way that it says. For those of you that don't know, it's a bunch of scrolls. I think it's 10 scrolls. I think it's 10 scrolls that you're supposed to read morning, afternoon, and night. And even though it's the greatest salesman in the world, it has very little to do, actually has nothing to do with strategy or technique on how to sell. It's all about universal principles. Everybody in any organization should read that book. And then The Compound Effect is a fantastic book as well. Have you read Atomic Habits?
No, I have not. It's on my list though.
If you like Compound Effect, I think you're going to love Atomic Habits. I think it's a fantastic book as well.
It's on my list. I'll put it on my list. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No worries. So, man, thank you so much for being on the show. I think that we could have gone for probably another hour.
I know, man. You and I think we can go for the whole day on this.
Yeah.
We just solve all the world problems. Right?
Yeah, pretty much on a single podcast. How great would that be? So, if anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best social media channels to get a hold of you at?
Yeah, just run up to my website, Restoration Brokers of America, and just ping me, and usually I'll call you within an hour. Let's talk. Any questions? We have tons of resources out there, a lot of videos. I'm pretty big on content. Anywhere, anything you want, go check out what we do.
Okay, awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we can go ahead and invite you back to the show here in the near future. All right.
I love it, man. Thanks.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, interviewing the restoration business's top industry insiders, the movers and shakers, the hustlers and hackers. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Instagram. Find Rico at Rico Garcia Jr. Find Ecotech Pro at Ecotech Pro. And check out the YouTube channel at Ecotech Pro. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.
Awesome. Cool. So
Thanks,
that
man.
was pretty amazing. That was
Top industry insiders, the movers and shakers, the hustlers and hackers. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Instagram. Find Rico at Rico Garcia Jr. Find Ecotech Pro at Ecotech Pro. And check out the YouTube channel at Ecotech Pro. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.